Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know.
Okay, so we're going to be discussing a big business opportunity that no one has talked about before. And we're going to talk about how VW actually helps sell Teslas. But you're going to have to kind of follow us here because it's not that simple.
We're brought to you by abetterrouteplanner.com. Use our link in the show notes below to get a 30-day free trial to the premium app.
And you can help support our channel by heading over to ecoware.us to find all sorts of new designs every week, like this, and like this.
Whoa, and what's on the other side?
Yeah, that's because it's a 4680.
Oh my gosh, it looks just like one.
Yeah, so these are available for a limited time up on our website. These are designed by Randy Shute, who makes all of his pottery using solar energy.
Wow.
So yeah, we carbon offset the production, the shipping, and the life cycle of every product, and we plant 10 trees for every order.
And we help cap a well for every order, so it is extraordinarily carbon negative. Head over to ecoware.us and check them out.
This week's episode is also sponsored by Blinkist.
We just listened to the Simplify shortcast of Lower Your Expectations with Eric Fisher.
Yeah, and I learned in just a few minutes from Eric, who has learned from talking to countless experts in productivity, about a life hack, I guess you'd call it, and a really good one at that.
Now, you've probably heard us talk about blinks before.
Right. You can think of a blink as a condensed book. It's short, so you can either read it or listen to one in less than 15 minutes.
But this shortcast is another cool service that Blinkist offers. Now, what is it?
Well, you can think of a shortcast as a blink for podcasts. So a shortcast condenses a long podcast down into its key ideas.
And so why did you like the Simplify shortcast so much?
Well, because I've got so much to do in my life. There are so many podcasts out there, and how am I supposed to find ones I'm interested in?
Shortcasts let you quickly see if you're interested in the topic.
Exactly. In the time that it would take me just to get through like one regular podcast, I can absorb the key ideas in a shortcast and then go listen to more if I find that person or topic super interesting.
With Blinkist, you have access to over 3,000 titles, even when you're offline.
And Blinkist also offers full-length audiobooks. Premium subscribers get special member pricing up to 65% off the regular retail price.
The first 100 people to use our link are going to get unlimited access for 1 week to try out Blinkist.
You'll also get 25% off if you want to try the full membership.
And the 7-day trial is completely free. You can cancel at any time during that period.
And we're also brought to you by BigBattery.com. No matter what you need to power, Big Battery can provide you with the latest battery tech at the best price per kilowatt hour guaranteed. Their batteries are easily installed, require zero maintenance, and they're made right here in the U.S. Pick up yours today at BigBattery.com and use code NOWYOUKNOW for 5% off at checkout.
So we're hearing a lot about charging infrastructure. It's a term that gets bandied about a lot, but unfortunately, most people don't know what on earth it means.
Yeah, all these big auto manufacturers, all these politicians are talking about charging infrastructure. It all sounds great, but there's a lot to unpack here, and because they're just using one term to cover all of it, it really is doing it a disservice.
So let's start from the bottom.
Okay.
Level 1 charging. Nice. Oh, level 1. Okay, I get it. It must go up from here. So level 1 is basically anything you can plug into a wall outlet in your home. So your regular wall socket, it goes up to about 20 amps. You can trickle charge. We're talking maximum around 1.9 kilowatts.
And for a lot of people, even that we just said is like 20 amps, 1.9 kilowatts.
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. So let's just talk about it in some simple terms here that really mean something to you, which is miles per hour or kilometers per hour.
So that would be miles of range per hour. So for every hour that you have it plugged in, you get that many miles of range.
And at level 1, we're basically talking about from 2 to 5 miles per hour. So every hour that you're plugged in, you're getting, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles per hour. Not a lot.
And I mean, that is a livable charging rate, especially if you can charge for a very long time. So for example, I go home every day. I plug into a 110 outlet and I charge all night long.
Yeah, you're a level 1 guy.
I'm kind of a level 1 guy.
And does it work?
For the most part. If I had a set commute that I knew every single day and I made sure to charge as soon as I got home every day, I would be all set. But there is better charging infrastructure than just level 1.
Yeah, you like it when you come to my house because I've got level 2, and that is up to 19.2 kilowatts. Typically, most of them aren't even that high. Most of them are around 6.6 kilowatts max. But again, you're like, oh, Zach, there you go again with the kilowatts. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's talk about it again in terms of miles per hour, and that's basically 12 to 25 miles per hour, depending on the car and depending on the plug.
And this is nice because you can still install it in most houses. It typically is running on 220 volts. So, think of your dryer sockets and stuff like that, not your usual wall outlets. Though use the wall outlets that you're like, yeah, I don't know what the heck that one's for. I just plug my dryer into it. Now, these level 2 chargers can be plugged in through outlets. Most of the time, they are just wired straight into the wall. And there's just a plug that plugs into your car and it charges the car, and that works great. And so you can have these at homes. You can have these at businesses. You can have these out in the world. You've probably seen them before.
So we've talked about level 1, level 2. You're probably saying, well, tell me about level 3.
There is no level 3, but some people will call it level 3, but it's not level 3, so don't call it level 3, even though some people do.
Yeah, the reason why that name got started is because back in 1997, when the J1772 charging standard was proposed, it was a possible standard, the level 3 standard. But this died in 2001. Basically, no one has used that term since then, but it kind of got stuck because we had level 1, we had level 2, so let's talk about level 3.
You just want to say level 3 charging, but it doesn't actually exist. But what does exist beyond level 2?
And here's the problem. The first two that we talked about, level 1 and level 2, is something we're all used to, AC power. It's the power in your house. Once we get up to level 3, or faster charging, or fast charge, it's DC power, which you don't have in your house. And so this is where I think things went off the rails and why people got so confused. And the other reason why it got so confusing is we just started using the term DC fast charge, which sounds awesome.
Well, but first we didn't use DC fast charge. First we used CHAdeMO, and then we used quick charge and also there's a billion different terms that mean relatively the same thing, which is DC fast charging. So let's talk about the early days of EVs.
Ooh, hey, the 1920s.
No. We're going to skip past, the very, very, like when they were basically electric horseless carriages.
Oh, you mean the early 2000s?
Let's talk about the early 2000s. California pushed a lot of companies to make EVs. We call these compliance cars these days. They were small EVs with small ranges, and they were made in small numbers. There was a small group of really amazing people who wanted to drive EVs, and they cared a lot about the environment, and they would put up with these compliance cars for that moment in order to not burn fossil fuels. These cars came with tiny batteries that couldn't charge very fast, even if you had plenty of power. And the J1772 level 2 charging station was plenty of power for these early adopters, and it was the best they could get in most cases. Mm-hmm. And thousands of level 2 chargers now dot the landscape, and it's called an EV charger. And these were put in usually to help make our campus green, or because that's what the developer planned, or because Dale kept bothering us about it. These aren't that expensive to install. They are a great safety net for EV drivers. You can stop at one, get a decent amount of range, and then head off to, your destination or another charger that could maybe charge you faster. They can be convenient. Sometimes they are day saving, but they are never extremely useful unless they are at your home or place of work, somewhere that you're going to be for 3+ hours, which in your life is usually home and work. You don't spend 3 hours at the grocery store.
Right.
But this has put the idea of EV charger in people's heads. And so when people want to be friendly to EVs and they don't know any better, a level 2 charger sounds great. And it's not bad. I don't want to diss them, but I think that in the future, they're going to be a little bit useless.
And here's the problem. When you go to buy an EV, you kind of have to become an EV expert if you want to make a good choice. It's kind of like when you go to buy a new TV. It's been years since you bought your last TV. You go to the store, you see a 70-inch television. It looks fantastic.
Well, you don't just see one. You see 100 of them lining the entire back of the store, and you go, what's the difference between all of these? Why don't I just get the cheap one? And then the guy behind the counter is like, well, that one doesn't have 60 hertz, and you're definitely going to want to make sure that it's interlacing. And if that doesn't have all LEDs, then when it's not, the black won't look black, and the color isn't going to. And you're like, what is going on? You have to become an expert in TVs if you want to get a good TV.
Right, because if you get the wrong TV, then basically you've just bought something that's going to be out of date in a year or two, and everyone's going to make fun of you and be like, why'd you waste your time getting that when you now have to get this again.
Right.
So, but that's the problem. Do most of us become TV experts, or most of us just go, oh, that looks good, throw it in the cart?
And with a TV, as long as it can load Netflix these days, that's kind of all you really need. So a lot of the smart TVs are good enough, which is great for TVs. For EVs, it's a little different.
But let's talk about charging for a second, because it's easy to hear that your car DC fast charges and you're like, great. And then you later find out once you get it that meant 50 kilowatts. And right now you're like, I don't know what that means, but later you do know what it means. But here's the problem. We know a lot of people, for instance, when the Bolt came out before the Model 3, were like, great, this has a good range, a great price, I'm going to pick one up. They didn't understand charging yet, so they got the Bolt. It did pretty much everything you'd expect for an electric car.
And it had DC fast charging.
Right.
Great. Problem solved.
So then I would ask my friends with the Bolt, I'd say, great, I heard that you went on a road trip. How did it go? Well, we had to stop and stay overnight someplace. Did you want to stop and stay overnight someplace? No, but we had to because we had to charge.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a charger along the way, but we had to stop there for about 2.5 hours.
Right.
What? Why did you do that? Well, the Bolt can only DC fast charge at 50 kilowatts. Now, for people who aren't electrical engineers and haven't studied, and what is kilowatt? Basically, it is a unit of power. So you have a 60-watt light bulb. 1 kilowatt is 1,000 watts. And when we're talking about 50 kilowatts, that's 50,000 watts.
That sounds great.
It's amazing. It's flowing into your car, charging the battery of the vehicle pretty darn quick.
But here's the thing. Let's talk about Tesla. On the Tesla supercharger network, the lowest supercharger you can find is a 72 kilowatt charger. They're called urban chargers. And these are the lowest, and they're not even that common. And the next step up is their 150 kilowatt charger. So we're 3 times faster than the 50 kilowatts that you can get in your Bolt.
But that's not all. Tesla also has 250 kilowatt level 3 superchargers,
which is basically 5 times faster than what you can charge in your Bolt. Now, this shows that Elon got it from the very beginning. The very beginning of Tesla, he understood that charging was a huge piece of the puzzle. So let's give you some context. In 2016, we got Sparky, our Model X, and we were able to drive across the country, even though there were less than 300 superchargers in the US and Canada at that time. That's about a quarter of the number of superchargers that there are today. And in fact, at that time, we stopped at 75 superchargers there and back, from Massachusetts to California and back. And that means we stopped at about a quarter of all the superchargers there were at the time.
And it worked, even back then. But honestly, 5 years ago, it was a little bit scarier in certain places just to get across the country. Nowadays, it's way less scary to do long distance trips, but it's also really convenient in cities. Back in 2016, there weren't a lot of superchargers in cities or around cities. It was just between cities, which was great for long distance trips. And you would, charge at home, and that would, cover the rest of it. Nowadays, there's a supercharger, like 10 miles from us.
Right.
And there's another one 15 miles from us. So we live in like a suburb of Boston. There's plenty of chargers around us, so that no matter which direction we're headed, or even if we're driving around town, we can stop at a supercharger, charge up in a very short period of time, and keep going about our day.
And here's the thing. If you don't own a Tesla, then you don't know about the supercharger network, because there's nothing you can do with it if you don't have a Tesla. So therefore, only a small number of people, only about 1 million people, have used them and know about them. That means that by and large, the mass media doesn't know about them. Politicians don't know about them. Policymakers, nobody knows about them. And the thing is, Tesla isn't making the supercharger network so that they can make money. They are doing this to support their car brand. And because they've done this, it's become one of their biggest moats.
The supercharger network doesn't get discussed, and even if it's mentioned, it's often dismissed, saying, when charging becomes ubiquitous, the supercharger network will no longer be a moat for Tesla.
So hang on. That might be true if all of the other competitors to Tesla were actually building out a proper network right now, if they were working to catch up.
Now, you're saying competitors, you're saying car brands.
Right.
And right now, the only car brand that we know of that's actually building a fast charging network is Rivian.
Correct.
That's the only other car brand that's building their own chargers,
right,
copying Tesla's playbook,
yep,
I would argue, but a good playbook to follow.
Right. Every other brand is just relying on the existing Electrify America or EVgo network.
Now, supercharging is really misunderstood about Tesla. And, for Bolt owners and other EV owners, I love you guys. I'm so glad that you're driving EVs, but you can't understand it. And I just want to rip that Band-Aid off. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I just want to talk about supercharging.
Yeah, it's not that you can't have another EV. You can. There's plenty of use cases. I mean, you have a Leaf, I have a Leaf. They work. It's great. It's just that you can't do all you can do in a Tesla. Here's the thing. In a Tesla, you pull up to a supercharger, you plug in, you walk away, you come back 15 to 20 minutes later, and you're good to go.
Right. And we didn't simplify anything there. We didn't say, oh, and of course you have to remember to bring your Tesla card and swipe it through the thing and bleep it against the thing and then wait for the handshake to happen. No, you just simply you plug it in and you walk away. Those are all the steps that it takes for supercharging to happen.
Now, is it 5 minutes of charging? No. But here's what it is. It's consistent, it's easy, it's luxurious, and it's reliable. Those 4 things are what you experience every time you go to a Tesla supercharger. I would argue those are the things you expect to happen when you go do pretty much anything, like go to a restaurant. You expect it to be consistent, easy, luxurious, and reliable. Now, you might say, luxurious? I don't need luxurious. Okay, that depends on what you need. But what I'm saying is, if one of those 4 things isn't there, you will stop going to that restaurant or that store. Because if you go to that restaurant and it's not easy, or if you go to that restaurant and it's not reliable, like it's closed, you're going to soon go, I'm going to have to find a new favorite restaurant.
And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about with Electrify America. But let's just, for example, talk about our buddy Kyle, who went on a cannonball run in a Porsche Taycan, one of the most expensive EVs you can buy these days. And he drove across the country as fast as he could, and he could actually charge faster than a Tesla, 350 kilowatts. But he barely made it. There were a bunch of instances where the charging infrastructure failed him. The chargers would overamp his low voltage battery pack, just like easy stuff. And he almost didn't beat the record. Now, he did, but that was because he spent a lot of time planning his route, making changes on the fly to his route. He had a team of people with him checking to make sure that all of the chargers were going to work for him. It wasn't as simple as hopping on the road and going to do this amazing trip.
So back in 2016, when we accomplished our cross-country trip with Sparky, we were very hopeful that the big boys, the other big auto companies, would just copy Tesla, and before long, we would see a lot of supercharger networks, Ford ones, GM ones, Toyota ones, and so forth.
But that has not been the case. Again, as we've said, Rivian is the only one that has that even as a goal.
Right.
I mean, Rivian hasn't built any yet, which is fine. They just announced that they were going to. But all these other car manufacturers have had plenty of time. They have plenty of money. What is taking them so long? Well, it's not really that they've taken so long. It's just that they've decided that they want to rely on the Electrify America network.
So let's learn what the Electrify America is all about. So in 2015, the United States Environmental Protection Agency accused Volkswagen Group of using defeat devices in its diesel-fueled vehicles in order to hide from regulators that the vehicles exceeded emission standards. The scandal quickly grew, leading eventually to billions of dollars of penalties and agreements to buy back vehicles, among other consequences.
As part of a consent decree reached with United States officials in 2016, Volkswagen agreed to numerous actions with $2 billion in total to promote electric vehicle use over 10 years to atone for the additional air pollution it caused.
Now, one aspect of the program was a pledge to establish a public electric vehicle charging network.
Now, this is not a conspiracy theory or anything like that. This is all true. We read this exactly word for word from Wikipedia. So it's true.
And so when we talk about Electrify America, when we talk about Ionity in Europe, those are two companies that weren't started by a passionate founder. Okay. Most companies you hear of today, startups, you hear about this passionate founder who wants to make some new product or service and they dream of a better world.
Right. And they started it in their garage with a bunch of their buddies and then they raised some money and they made that company work. This is not that story. Electrify America was simply, hi, yes, we have a check here. Who wants to be the CEO to spend all of this money because we have to, because the government told us that we had to spend this money. Oh, you want to do it? Okay, here, go, have fun.
It's a company formed out of a lawsuit, not a dream.
And there's no incentive for this company to do better. This is essentially like a kid cleaning his room, right? There's, nice, sweet little Martha, and she loves to clean her room because she loves to have a clean room. And so she puts all of her things in nice places and folds all of her clothes, and it's all nice. But Timmy, on the other hand, doesn't want to clean his room. And when he pulls Martha's hair, and his mother is like, Timmy, bad boy, you should go clean your room. Does Timmy clean his room the same way that Martha does? No.
I'll just put this stuff under the bed.
Yeah.
And I think I'll
put some
this
stuff in the closet.
Yeah.
And
is this okay, Mom? Can I go play now?
Right. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. When the mom walks in and says, Timmy, why is the carpet all lumpy? I don't know. Oh, I didn't know there were toys under there. Like, you kind of get the same sense from Electrify America. But here's the problem. People rely on this network. So when I attack Electrify America, people want to defend their charger. But I'm not saying that we should go burn them all down. I'm saying that these chargers should be better. And honestly, the company that's running them should have a better incentive other than, well, we have about $2 billion to blow. I guess we have to make an EV charging network. So as long as it checks these government boxes, we're good.
Right. Now, the problem is because Ford, GM, and all the others have tied their EVs to these networks, they have signaled to the politicians, the policymakers, and the public that things are good and we just need more of this. And what is this?
So going back to our earlier discussion, this is fast charging. So what is the U.S. government talking about now? 500,000 fast chargers.
Now, that sounds great, right? But is it actually that good?
So let's say you drive a gas-burning car and practically on every corner, there's a gas station. You don't have to think about refueling. You don't have to plan your road trips to like, where's the gas station? Unless you're driving through, upper Maine or, the middle of the desert.
But now imagine that I take away all your gas stations tomorrow. You're driving around going, hey, where am I going to get my gas? Don't worry, I say. There's a gas station 22 miles away.
What?
Yeah, don't worry. You can make it. So you drive there. And when you get there, there are 3 pumps. One of them is out of order. The other 2 have cars at them. But you're like,
that's okay. They'll be free in a minute.
Except they won't be free in a minute because it takes 5 hours to fill up the tank. That's the EA network. Now, would you be excited about buying a gas car if that was the infrastructure?
No.
And that's what nobody is understanding except Tesla. Now, you might be asking, well, if this is true, Zac and Jesse, then why isn't this more of a problem? Why hasn't everybody woken up to this? It's because of one thing.
This magical thing that EVs get that gas cars don't. Home charging. If it weren't for home charging, this Electrify America problem would have already been exposed. It would have bubbled to a head. We probably would have solved that issue. But instead, the only people buying EVs other than Teslas, and Teslas to some extent, are people who can comfortably charge at home. So early adopters have solved most of the charging needs at home, which covers up the infrastructure problem. Now, not having proper charging infrastructure is not sustainable. Now, home charging should be the norm. It is awesome. Who wouldn't want to have a gas station at their home all the time? Well, it's a better version of a gas station. But if you live in a city or an apartment or a myriad of other edge cases, you simply cannot plug in close enough to your house, and you're going to have to rely on public charging.
And this is why Tesla built urban chargers. And this is why Tesla has a program where they will help install chargers at places of work. Again, because Tesla gets it.
However, even Tesla can't solve everyone's problem. And that's why I think right to charge is so important.
Wait, what's right to charge?
You know how like James Bond has like license to kill? Right to charge is a law that places have passed that says if you have an EV, you have a right to charge that EV however it is that you can charge that EV.
Oh, so you're talking about like at apartment buildings and condo complexes.
Right. A lot of condos, homeowners associations, apartment buildings, they just want to keep everything looking normal and they don't want things to change. And hey, what's that? An extension cord coming out of your window, plugging into your car? No, you can't do that. Right to charge says you can't stop me from doing any of those things.
Right, because with EVs, charging at home is so important to the infrastructure problem.
It's practically critical. So I would argue right to charge is one of these things that is going to need to happen pretty much everywhere. Now, you could make the argument, why give these people so much power when we should just be building proper infrastructure for them? And I completely agree with you. I think that we need to establish programs where it's easy to install chargers in places of work and people's homes, because these are the places that are going to make EVs work for about 90% of the time.
But let's go back to the Electrify America charging model. I would argue it is flawed. They're making their money from 3 revenue streams. One, a big pile that they started with. So $2 billion that was just handed to them. Number 2, Government grants. We're now talking in the U.S. about building 500,000 EV chargers. So that's federal money that's going to come in to help pay for it. And 3, they're overcharging consumers. You pull into an Electrify America stall, and they're going to charge you for the cost of electricity plus a whole lot more.
Now, you might be seeing where we're going with this. Once the big pile of Dieselgate money is spent, and once the government grants have dried up for building the infrastructure, really only leaves one last option, and that's to charge consumers for the rest of it. And, this charging infrastructure is not free. So I guess it's just going to have to be more expensive if you want a fast charge.
But let's go to the gas station model for a second right now. Gas stations really don't make a whole lot of money on gas. They make most of their money on the convenience stores that are right next to the gas station. So you're going to the pump for some gas, but then you also go in the convenience store for some water or some cigarettes or whatever.
Now, we've seen Tesla's latest trademark for Tesla restaurants.
Bingo! Tesla gets it.
And this is the business opportunity that we alluded to at the beginning of the show.
Let's give an example of this, actually.
Yes.
When we were going down to Georgia to film some stuff, we stopped at a steakhouse in North Carolina. Why did we do that?
This place is called Texas Steakhouse, and I have been there 3 times. You might be saying, Jesse, you must love Texas Steakhouse. No, I don't. Texas Steakhouse is at a supercharger in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Some Tesla owners may be familiar with it. It's basically the only restaurant within walking distance of the charger. So you kind of stop there, you go, feeling a little hungry. What are my options? Texas Steakhouse. So I've gone to this restaurant 3 times when I normally would have gone there 0 times.
Yeah, I mean, I largely eat a plant-based diet, so there's, I think, one thing on the menu I can even eat there. But yet, we stopped there, and one of the major reasons was, yes, we're going to be there for 20 minutes anyway, and there's nothing else. But also, they offer a coupon for Tesla owners. They give you a percentage off your meal, and so we ate there.
Now, this is the thing that basically all businesses are missing right now. EV charging brings customers right to your business for at least 20 minutes.
What other thing can you think of that actually brings the customer to your door for 20 minutes? They're stuck there for 20 minutes.
Ball games?
Airlines.
There are a couple of places where everyone knows I'm a captive customer.
Right.
At a ball game, I guess I have to pay $7 for a bottle of water. Why? Because they have the monopoly on water. Now, with EV charging, sure, I could go drop people off somewhere to go pick something else up, but if the charger has some amenities, I'm going to want to use those amenities.
Right.
And this is kind of the missed opportunity. And when we're talking about like Electrify America, they just build chargers. They have to rent land from places to build the chargers on. Then they have to run all the infrastructure. What are we missing here? They're not making any money from people sitting in their cars or, getting out of their cars and walking around to the stores that are nearby.
Exactly.
This is exactly the opportunity that everyone has been missing for the longest time. Now, there are some places, grocery stores, there have been some other stores who just put in an EV charger. And I have gone to those. There's a supermarket about 5 miles away from me. I would normally never go there. When I had my Leaf, they had a Chatamo station there. I would go to that grocery store. That was huge. I wanted to go there, and I was like, great, it's a grocery store, whatever I need, it's right there, and I'm going to have to be there for at least 20 minutes.
Right. Now, in the UK, there are some charging stations that have gotten it, right? They've built a charger, a big one that takes a lot of cars, and then there's lots of food options right there.
Yeah, it's called a forecourt. And I think that is exactly the right move to do because it's owned by the charging company. So whatever you go in and buy at whatever markup they have is helping to pay for the infrastructure of the charging, which is exactly what happens with gas stations today.
Now, I want to talk about what happens when the Dieselgate money runs out. It's just a big pile of money and it's going to run out. And when this happens, will Electrify America go out of business or will maybe someone buy it? Let's just say a company like Ford buys it. What would happen to GM customers? Would they be allowed to charge there anymore?
Maybe they would be allowed to charge there, but at a much steeper rate because, they just didn't buy into the Ford charging infrastructure model, so you can pay the higher price. Even still, I don't think that this is a sustainable business model. I think that Tesla can do it because it's priced into their cars. Every car that you buy from Tesla, you're basically paying for the supercharger infrastructure. You're also paying for the electricity when you go there, but you're paying just a little bit more than the electricity costs around in that area. So you're not like significantly paying for the charger. It's you buying the car that makes it work.
Now, let's go back about 100 years when people started to get this idea that there were going to be cars and they were going to be traveling places. People who got in early and built some of the first gas stations with general stores or some of the first motels, these early businesses were rewarded. Now, I want to go back to that argument we made early on where people said that once charging becomes ubiquitous, the Tesla's moat will go away. I think that Tesla's moat is here to stay for quite some time and will actually be the deciding factor in which big auto companies succeed or fail.
As we've said so far, Rivian it has announced a similar plan, but we'll have to wait to see how their plan unfolds. But I'm hopeful that they are going to get it right.
As for Ford, GM, Stellantis, Honda, Toyota, BMW, Daimler, VW, I have to say they're all making the same mistake. They could address this problem and in a few years have a pretty sizable charging network, but instead they're all talking about partnerships with the same existing crop of charging companies. And that's why I have serious doubts as to whether they'll be able to convince the car buying public to buy their cars and, more importantly, stay loyal to their brand.
Because Electrify America is basically the tragedy of the commons, it wasn't built for anyone in particular. It wasn't built to last. Basically, EA just went out, was like, who makes fast chargers? Oh, you? Okay, put in your fast chargers. And they break constantly. They're not very reliable, and different cars charge at different rates at all of them.
Yeah, I want to explain. This is a really important point here. I want to explain why Big Auto is actually going to be helping Tesla, which is kind of why the title of this episode is that VW helps sell Teslas. Basically, Big Auto is going to spend a lot of money on advertising, right? They're going to show off their new lines of EVs. Their customers who have heard of their brands and probably bought their brands before are going to get into those Ford Mach-E's, those VW ID4s, and they're going to experience a pretty awesome electric car. It has all these things that we have found out already about electric cars, right? The amazing torque, the quietness, the zero emissions.
No oil changes.
The charging at home.
Hardly any other maintenance.
A frunk that you can put stuff in.
Right.
But then what are they going to find out? They're going to find out that charging on a long drive is quite a pain because they don't have the Tesla supercharger network. And they're going to turn to YouTube or their friends and they're going to ask like, hey, I went on this trip and it wasn't as easy as you said it was, Jesse, with the Tesla.
And I'll go, yeah, that's because you're driving an ID4, and I never said it was going to be that easy for you.
But wait, I bought an electric car like you said I should do.
Right. I said, hey, I'm with you on buying an electric car. I did tell you should probably get a Tesla just because you'll have the supercharging network.
Wait. So my car's not the same as your car?
Well, no. I mean, you have Electrify America, and hey, that's great. That's good for you.
But it's a nationwide charging network.
Right. And I heard that it's worked for some people. I'm so sorry that it didn't work for you. I mean, Tesla supercharger has pretty much always come in clutch for me. There was one time it didn't work, but there was another supercharger like 6 miles down the road.
Okay. You know what I'll do? I'll just go charge a Tesla supercharger and see what it's like.
Well, no, you can't.
Why?
Because your car doesn't charge the Tesla supercharger.
And that's where I think the aha moment is going to happen. We've seen it happen to a lot of people already. Because we're part of this grassroots community and people reach out to us all the time, a lot of people have said the same thing. I bought a Leaf because I could afford it, and then I realized what the weakness was. Or I bought a Bolt because it went on sale before the Model 3, and then I realized the weakness.
I mean, we have been talking about charging infrastructure for over 5 years. I remember talking, and we were like, "Oh, is the CHAdeMO standard going to be the one?" Because Leafs were one of the only cars that could DC fast charge, and we were like, "It's actually really great. Leafs are great." And now, hardly anyone's talking about that anymore. There are CHAdeMO stations at Electrify America stations, but there's fewer of them because it's basically only Leafs that can charge with CHAdeMO. So it's this constantly changing thing. And yeah, we've met a lot of people, some people who went from driving a Leaf to driving a Bolt, who now drive a Model 3.
And this is why I laugh when car companies say that they have the Tesla killer, and why the media says, watch out, Tesla, here comes the Tesla killer. Because I know that no matter how awesome you think that car is, without a supercharging network, that car is going to come up short. So, Lucid Air. Great that you have a 500-mile range car. Great that it looks like it has amazing specs. I'm not worried that that's a Tesla killer because you know what you don't have, Lucid? you don't have a lucid charging network. You're basically glomming onto the Electrify America network. So what you're doing is you're actually helping to sell the next Tesla.
And so for the people who are saying right now, like, Zac and Jesse, you don't understand Electrify America. It's working. I've done a trip with it and it was fine. There's no problems. That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that, because honestly, I'm like so scared for people who don't have Teslas and supercharging. What I'm worried about is when that money runs out in Electrify America's coffers. When they don't have the Dieselgate money anymore, because there's no like guy who started the company and was like, I'm going to make the best charging infrastructure in the world, because there is no one at Electrify America who cares that much. Right. It's just going to go away one day. Like, you do realize that that's going to happen. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen if Ford is going to buy it, or if GM's going to buy it, or if it's just going to fall apart.
And I just want to talk about the network. It's on a shoestring. Like, having 3 or 4 chargers at a location is not enough. When Tesla opens up a location, it generally has 8 as a minimum. And that
minimum.
Right.
It goes to 12. There's some that have 50 charging stations.
Right. And that is because you need to not only have a network, but you have to make sure there's a slot open for you when you get there. And you can't afford to wait 2 hours for a slot to open up because you're busy.
And you can't necessarily book charging slots.
No.
Because if you don't show up to there's so many like little, but we could work around it this way. I don't think so. I think that you need to have the infrastructure ready. And right now, I have not been impressed with basically anyone other than Tesla.
Now, at the Plaid event, Elon came on stage, and one of the first things he mentioned was that week they had opened up 35 new supercharger locations. That got over everyone's head because they just wanted to see the Plaid. But he was saying it right there in front of your face. Their biggest thing they have is the supercharger network. What makes that Plaid amazing is it can plug in on their network.
And as Tesla is growing, I want to talk about this. The early superchargers that Tesla put in, they were a small company. They didn't have a lot of money to throw around for the supercharger network, and they had to kind of beg and plead and like, oh, could we please put in a charger in your Arby's parking lot? And the Arby's would be like, yeah, maybe, which was stupid of them because it probably brought them a ton of business.
Right.
What Tesla can do now is, first of all, point to tons and countless examples of like, yeah, we put in a supercharger and that business that was right next to it flourished. They can also build their own restaurants, as we know that they've trademarked. If Tesla can do that, because that would make superchargers so much better. I'm already singing the praises of superchargers, but they're not all perfect. In fact, we made a supercharger review section so that way you could know which superchargers were good and which ones were bad. You know, which ones you could go to a bathroom at and which ones you couldn't. If Tesla can be building their own superchargers with a building next to them, which could be selling you things, which could be allowing you to go to the bathroom, that is going to up the experience even further and make Electrify America look even worse.
Yeah. And I have a name for it, actually.
Oh?
JB Strudels.
Even though he doesn't work at Tesla anymore?
No, but he's going to be the brand,
He could be the brand?
Yeah.
I mean,
you can get the Franz fries.
I agree. I mean, I really think that anything that Tesla does at the superchargers is going to make the brand so much stronger. If it's a Tesla exclusive lounge and you get in by swiping your key card or your fob or your phone, and it's like, boop, I'm into the special lounge section.
Right.
And no one else can get in. Boo.
And it's playing Elon's song. What's his song again?
Don't doubt your vibe. It doesn't have to go that deep, but I'm just saying Tesla is perfectly situated to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why they trademarked it. I mean, you don't go and bother to trademark a restaurant chain unless you're seriously consider doing it, because you can't trademark a chain unless you're about to put it into practice. As we know from trademark law, you can't just reserve something and hold it forever. You have to actually be a business. So this might be revealing that Tesla's already about to open something somewhere.
And when they do,
another revenue stream for Tesla
to support an already amazing existing section of their business.
Yeah. Anyway, so I hope we walked you through kind of our proof of how other car companies are actually going to be helping to sell Tesla because they haven't bothered to build out a charging infrastructure. Not a sexy argument, but I would argue actually a very powerful argument that is probably going to play out to be true.
And just one last argument, Tesla can't do it alone. right to charge initiatives are really, really important. If people can't charge at their homes, it doesn't matter how many superchargers are around them.
Right.
It really, you need to be charging at home. It's the best way to charge your car, as silly as that sounds. Me just being able to plug into my wall was a huge reason for why I even rent the apartment that I do.
Yeah, this is a part of EVs that doesn't get understood till you own one. You go out in the morning, and if you are able to charge at home, your car is fully charged. Imagine that, gas car owners, that you come out in the morning and every morning you have a full tank. Isn't that a dream? I mean, in the past 5 years, we haven't gone to a gas station. Think of all the time we've saved. Think of all the fumes we haven't had to smell.
Exactly. So, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Now you know.